My name is Alex Stone, and this is the story of how I was unseen exploited and how I finally took control of my own life. You ever wake up one day and realize you were never family? Just a lifeline they kept draining until you ran dry. That is my truth. I was not a son. I was not a child they nurtured. I was a ledger, a tool, a placeholder for someone else's dreams. I used to wake up before the city stirred, the skyline of New York City spilling orange light through my tiny loft window. My morning smelled of coffee and ink, piles of reports stacked like monuments to exhaustion. Everyone told me I was lucky that I had it all. But luck doesn't count when your achievements vanish in the shadows of someone else. I had spent years building a life that no one truly saw. Long nights at a law office, weekends, running side projects to fund dreams that were not mine, and mornings, pretending everything was normal. I kept the apartment spotless, my routines precise, because I believed if I stayed perfect, maybe they'd notice me. Not my younger cousin, not my mother's favorite, not the one whose every word and choice was celebrated, while I quietly disappeared. Even on ordinary days there was tension in the air. A misplaced compliment, a casual glance, a sentence that reminded me the center of attention belonged somewhere else. My phone buzzed constantly. Reminders of obligations I didn't choose. Loans, payments, favors. And every time I answered, I felt my own voice shrink. My own needs fade, as if my life was a ledger for everyone else's victories. The first cut came on what should have been a milestone. My promotion celebration, my chance to finally be seen, was already slipping away before I stepped into the restaurant. The reservation had changed. My friends, colleagues, the people who had truly seen me, were pushed to the edges, while my family's chosen star, the cousin who always outshone me, sat center stage. A text from my mother arrived. "Remember, make sure Luke is the highlight. Your guests can take the side table," my father added. "Don't make it about yourself. We don't want arrogance tonight." I stared at the phone, heat rising in my chest. Even today, my achievements belonged to someone else. I wanted to scream, but instead I clenched my fists, forcing a smile when I walked in. My cousin was radiant, laughing while I felt invisible. Later, a whisper from across the table made the betrayal real. If Alex hadn't covered the tuition and bills, Luke wouldn't have been able to come this far. Not a thank you, not a hint of gratitude, just the acknowledgement that I existed to carry the weight of everyone else's success. I slipped my phone into my pocket, voice recorder on. If they tried to erase me again in front of everyone, there would be proof. And in that moment, standing there, I realized something had to change or I would vanish completely. By the time the evening wore on, the pattern had become painfully clear. Every toast, every compliment, every laugh circled around my cousin, my parents nodding in approval. I was the invisible background, the unpaid prop in someone else's story. I slipped out for a moment, standing on a rooftop terrace. The city lights below shimmered like broken promises. I opened my journal, fingers trembling, and wrote, "I am not invisible. I will not disappear quietly." When I returned, a whispered comment hit me like ice. "Alex handles everything, yet no one ever notices. He just makes it work." The words weren't meant to hurt. They were meant to erase me entirely. My heart pounded, and I realized the betrayal wasn't just neglect. It was deliberate. Later, during dessert, my phone buzzed again. Another last-minute request, a tuition fee, a loan guarantee, an urgent transfer. My chest tightened. I knew if I said no, it would start a war. If I said yes, I would disappear further. I pressed record, sliding the phone into my pocket. Tonight they would see me, or they would finally see me walk away. Even Marcus, my silent anchor, noticed. He leaned over, whispering, "You're burning from the inside. Alex, don't let them snuff you out." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. But inside, I was already plotting the first step toward breaking free. By the time the main course arrived, I could barely sit. Every laugh, every glance at my cousin, every polite nod to my parents felt like knives pressed against my ribs. I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a mistake. This was a lifetime of preparation to make me small, invisible, replaceable. I excused myself, walking into the dim hallway outside the dining room. The air smelled faintly of candles and old carpet. My hand shook. My phone vibrated. Another urgent request for a transfer. Another reminder that my life was never my own. I pressed record again. Every move I'd made, every sacrifice, every late night shift, every unpaid bill, they had been collecting it all like currency in a ledger. I wasn't allowed to see. My chest tightened, my vision blurred. And then it hit me. I didn't have to stay in their story anymore. I could step out. I could erase them from the role they'd assigned me. The thought was electric, terrifying, liberating. My knuckles were white against the wall. The decision was no longer about money or pride. It was about existence. I returned to the dining room, heart-hammering, hands still damp from sweat. The room seemed smaller somehow, the laughter louder, the air thicker. I stood shoulders squared and let the murmurs settle into silence. If I have been nothing more than the bank for this family, I said, my voice low but cutting, then every favor, every payment, every hour, I sacrifice, consider it mine, not yours. Eyes widened. Utter silence. My cousin's smug smile faltered. My parents' practiced calm flickered like a candlelight in a storm. I pressed stop on my phone, sliding it across the table where everyone could see it. This, I said, is the ledger of 12 years. Every tuition, every late fee, every emergency, I covered for someone else's comfort. Every transaction proves I existed. And yet here I am, ignored, erased, treated like I never mattered. The room froze. My mother's lips parted. My father's jaw clenched. My cousin looked away. And in that moment, the truth landed like a brick. All the subtle manipulations, the invisible work, the control, they were exposed. I turned and walked out. The echoes of my footsteps were final, leaving the room suspended in shock. I had taken the center stage they never offered me, but not for them. For me. Outside, the city was alive with its usual chaos, indifferent to the storm I'd left behind. I sank onto the curb, shoulders heavy, chest tight, but for the first time in years unburdened. All those nights, spent covering bills, balancing loans, sacrificing sleep, it was not wasted. It was proof that I could survive, that I could endure. But the truth stung. Love had been conditional, measured in obedience and service, not presence or care. I realized something else. Freedom was not about revenge. It was not about proving them wrong. It was about choosing myself. Finally, I could breathe without permission, live without guilt, and find my own worth outside their ledger. The river nearby shimmered under streetlights, flowing regardless of my pain. And in its quiet persistence, I saw a mirror of my own life, unstoppable, moving forward, unclaimed, unapologetic. I stood, letting the night air fill my lungs, letting the weight finally lift. My phone buzzed. Messages, missed calls, the familiar pull of old obligations. But I ignored them. For the first time, I was not theirs. Not their shadow, not their wallet, not their invisible child. I was mine. And I wonder, if you were in my shoes, would you have walked away too? Or would you have stayed carrying it all, hoping for recognition that never came? The city from below, indifferent but beautiful. And I smiled. My story is not over. It's just beginning.